Okay, here we are at the Hastings Historical Society. It is December 17th, 2002, and this is a conversation with Richie about his experiences during the Vietnam War. So, Richie, just say hello.
Hello.
And why don't you tell us how you joined the Army? How did you get to be in the Army?
Sure.
How old were you? Where were you? Why you went? What were your thoughts and feelings about all of that? What was the time? What was it
Sure.
like here?
Well, it all began when
experience for you here.
It all began when I was 18 years old and receiving my draft card and going first time to Whitehall Street in Manhattan, New York, for a complete physical. At the time, a little nerve-wracking because you didn't know when you were going to be inducted into the armed services. So it was kind of a waiting game, but a nervous kind of waiting game, because there was the news media every day, all you heard was about the Vietnam War and how aggressive it has become. At the time,
And what year are we talking about?
Well, actually, I was in 1964. I was 18 years old.
So it was 1964.
That's when it began. And I had, as they say, a watch.
So you knew you were going to get a draft card because the draft was in place.
Correct.
And you didn't think you were going to go to college to get a deferment or other medical deferments?
Correct. Although I did have what they call a lazy eye, I thought maybe a possibility that if I was going to be drafted or called into the armed forces that I would become 4F.
Okay.
But naturally I wasn't.
But you weren't.
I was considered 1A, ready for active duty. But I didn't get drafted until I was 19 and a half years old. So it was kind of a waiting game from 18 to 19 and a half.
And you didn't want to enlist to get preferable treatment about where you'd be?
Right. I was going to enlist in the Coast Guard.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, my girlfriend and her family and my family convinced me, no way, Jose, as they say. Maybe they'll just forget about you. And naturally, they didn't. The day came, I received papers in the mail that I was to report to Whitehall Street, and I was being inducted into the United States Army.
And how'd that feel?
I tell you, it was I was on vacation from my job, so it was not my first day on vacation. It was not too pleasant, but it was nerve-wracking. And just the anticipation.
And what was your job at the time?
At the time, I was working in food fair. I was a assistant manager there, and everybody was saying, "Geez, good luck." They were already anticipating me going overseas. That was the first thing on everybody's mind.
Mm.
And to get your paperwork or whatever stuff that you had, like life insurance, have everything in place in reference to that. And I said, Jesus, everybody's got me marked for death already. So it was kind of nerve-wracking.
And the news was not good.
No, not at all.
Lots of body bags.
Right.
Was this a war?
And the media, watching television every night. And they would just be talking about the fatalities that was going on and how.
Did you know anybody who was there already?
No, I knew a few people that were there, but they were still there. So I couldn't even talk to anybody in reference to what it was like and what am I going to be anticipating, when I do go over. So it was just like a waiting game, and I finally went in, to Whitehall Street for again, they did another physical. I had to do a lot of paperwork, and this very same day, we were being deported to Fort Jackson, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And we took a train there, I remember, from Manhattan. So I was able to say my last goodbyes. People met me down at the train station at the time. And it was bon voyage, and not a pleasant thing to do. It's kind of sad, And I was very close to my mother, so it was considered me like a mama's boy in a way.
Sure.
But she was totally devastated by this whole thing. So when I first got into Fort Jackson, there were DIs waiting for us.
What did you say?
DIs.
What are DIs?
There were sergeants, getting ready for basic training.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not like home, that's for sure.
And what's DI short for?
I can't remember.
It's all right.
So, but they wore these
Big
long,
hats.
big hats, and they were really aggressive, I recall, and chasing us around, getting in, standing at attention, and being a New Yorker, and they were Southerners. They did not like New Yorkers.
Oh boy, really?
Yeah, so they were kind of abusive.
No
More
kidding.
than, yeah.
How so? What would they do?
They'd kick you in the butt, slap you around a little bit here and there, and you couldn't do anything about it.
Right. Can't fight back?
No. Be even worse if it happened. So I recalled my first day there at Fort Jackson. They wanted to know, anybody here Italian? And I raised my hand.
Uh-oh.
And they said, okay, step forward. You guys are great cooks from what I understand, so you're going to do KP, which is kitchen police.
Sure.
So I remember my first day there, I was doing pots and pans for 18 hours straight.
Oh.
And Fort Jackson, I think their base camp was like 65,000 people that they used to serve at the time. And I remember my hands were actually wilted. I had blisters and it was cut up.
No gloves?
No, you're not allowed to it in those days.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so it was an experience.
And now, how did you get from that to be a weapons expert?
Well, what
From
happened
KP
was
duty.
the second day they transferred us over to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and that was going to be the base camp for the newly inductees, such as myself. And when I went there, it was formed. The sergeants and the people that headed it up were either airborne or Green Beret. So I knew it was going to be a tough 8 weeks of basic training.
Okay, so you were training with Green Berets and other airborne units.
Correct.
So that means pilots and people who work on planes.
Right. So it was the first time they opened up
that
Fort
would
Bragg.
seem to be a little bit more of an elite group then.
Yeah, it was a very unique group, and especially you're only in basic training. So, you didn't know what to anticipate, once you graduated. But upon my graduation, my 8th week, because I scored high on my physical fitness scores, 300 points you would pass to graduate from basic training. And I think it was a 598, almost perfect. 600 was perfect.
Wow.
So I was called, I remember there was a...
So you were extremely physically fit.
Yes.
And obviously very intelligent.
Right. So I was called up to participate in what they called an airborne ranger course.
Because of your high score.
Right. So I went through this training for a complete day.
Now, did you know you were excelling? Did you feel like you were excelling?
Oh, yeah. To me, it was, because I was an athlete to begin with.
Okay. You were athletic.
So, yeah. So, some things, that I did there was just natural.
Sure.
The running and, the throwing of hand grenades, during basic training. So I was pretty good at that. So I took this course, graduated the course, and then I received papers, because I was going home right after graduation. You go home for 2 weeks, and then you were to report to the new unit, which I was. I was told I was going to an armory unit in Kentucky, Fort Knox. And I said, geez, what am I going to do there? So they said, well, you're going to work in tanks. I said, what the hell do I know about tanks? So I reported, and the weird thing is that I reported to the wrong unit. But it wasn't my fault, it was the paperwork that they did on me.
Snafu.
So they didn't know what to do with me. So they said, okay, we're forming a new unit called the 17th Air Cav. And it's a combination of helicopter units, aircraft, and ground infantry.
Right.
And you're going to be reporting to. It's going to be in Fort Knox, and you're going to be reporting to that unit the very next day, which they made me, get my things in order, which I did. I reported there, and I was part of this new unit that was formerly, it was created back in 1966. So I was in infantry, and we started to right away go through various training courses.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it was target practice at first. They wanted to see, as far as weapons, what kind of weapons you can shoot and how accurate you can be, which I did. I participated, and I qualified for expert in many of the weapons, except for the pistol. I believe I was a sharpshooter, which was one under being an expert. So then they started to travel, and which was war games. We decided to participate, and I think the first place that we went to was in Indiana, where we trained with the Airborne Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing all types of war games that we participated with them. And we excelled in that. Then from there we went to Georgia.
So you're using fake ammunition in a war game?
Right.
And it's like, go get these guys and who gets who first?
Right. There was always a plan, how to,
Right. Just take
capture.
on the hill first or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
And we excelled in that. And then...
So you won?
Yeah, we won. I mean, we went through some courses where we were losing, but the majority of them we won. Then from there we went to Georgia to train with the Green Beret, which was not a little. They were breaking all sorts of rules, but we actually defeated them as well in these games.
Wow, because they're the elite
Right.
fighting unit, right?
Exactly.
Aren't they like special forces?
That's right. It's the elite. Everyone was an expert in a particular field. That's how
So you
they
guys
worked.
must feel really pumped up and
Oh, we were ready to go.
like ready to go
Yeah.
overseas and kick ass, right?
That's right. So it became it. That's how the Green Beret, the red maroon berets that we have and issued, we applied for it. Our major applied for it because we were unique in what we did, and we were awarded the maroon berets, but we weren't allowed to wear it at first in states. They said you're only going to be able to wear it when you get to Vietnam. But that was overruled. And just before we left for Vietnam...
And what would be the significance of that, of wearing the berets here versus there?
That's what we didn't understand. Once we because it was never awarded to anyone before, other than Green Beret and Airborne Rangers, they had a black beret.
Okay.
So being that we were a unique group, and we went through these various courses, a combination of Airborne Ranger courses and Green Beret courses, hey, we qualify for something. So we came up with the Maroon Beret.
Okay.
So because of politics and a lot of paperwork that was conducted.
So you just helped them, and you just kept them in your pockets, the purple berets?
Yeah, more or less.
It's very funny.
Yeah, it is. So just before we went to Vietnam, we got papers that stated that we were allowed to wear the Maroon Berets effective immediately.
Yeah.
So we,
That's great.
yeah, so we got it, and we were very unique. And
So you're a unique unit because you have both air
and ground.
together, and
Right.
you're the only unit that has that, and it seems like such a wonderful, smart idea.
Right.
Right. Very effective.
Very, very effective.
So now you're going to the bad place.
Right. So we know we're going, and we had paperwork, and at the time there was some conflicts going on in Israel at the time.
Okay. So now what year you were still in 64?
That was in 67.
So
The
now you're
very
60
beginning of 67.
Now you're 67, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so now we're talking about 1967.
Right. So we got papers to go to Vietnam.
And where in Vietnam are you going?
The first place was going to be a town called Zion.
Zion?
D-I-A-N, I believe.
Okay, so you didn't go to Israel.
No, but we were hoping to go to Israel.
Why?
Well, there wasn't too much really going on. It was just that they had what they called red alert at the time. So,
Oh yeah, there was a big war in '67 in Israel.
right. So we said, oh, let us go there, rather than go to Vietnam, because all you heard was about Vietnam.
Yeah, I mean, the war was raging in
That's right.
'67, and soldiers were dying at an alarming rate.
That's right. So they said, no, we already have papers cut. You guys are going to Vietnam. So half of the unit went by plane overseas. And unfortunately, I went. Well, I should say fortunately, maybe, because it was 22 days going by sea. So it just gave me 22 days less of serving in the Army at the time. So I didn't mind it too much, except for getting seasick at the beginning. But it took us 22 days, and
where did you land?
we landed somewhere south of Saigon, actually.
There's a big port city there. I don't remember the name.
Yeah,
of it.
I can't remember. But the day that we did land and started to come to shore, we were being bombarded with mortar rounds.
While you're at sea.
While we were at sea. And we had units, protecting us.
Were you on a ship with guns?
Unfortunately, no. It was a cargo ship that it was.
Oh.
Huge USS Walker.
So you had no protection?
No protection. And when we boarded the ships, they took all our ammunition, weapons. So we had nothing issued to us when we landed.
Oh, God.
So they had to call in some airstrikes,
Right.
which they did. And I remember there were helicopter units that were coming into where we were, and we were all running in various sections to these helicopters that landed, and they were going to take us to the destination. So I remember it was during the monsoon season, and I'm in the helicopter, my very first day in Vietnam, and it was dark, like really dark, and it was raining like cats and dogs, and I'm up in the helicopter, and there's artillery. I could see it looked like the 4th of July.
Oh, wow.
And I'm saying, what the hell am I doing? Yeah, I'm saying, I can't believe this is happening,
Like you had any choice?
No, I had no choice. So, in fact, we had one emergency landing because it was raining so hard. So we were in rice paddies, and that's when I was actually talking to myself about what we were doing there. And eventually we went back up, and we landed in Long Ben. Not Long Ben, I'm sorry. Travis Air Force Base is where we landed. And they said, you're going to have to stay here overnight before you go to Zion, where you guys were originally going to be going. So they issued us air mattresses to sleep on. And, there was there's no barracks or anything like that. Your air mattress, you're outside and you lay down and go to sleep. But there was so much artillery going on, in the perimeters for protection of the Air Force Base. My mattress, after I fill it up, I remember, and I'm laying on there and I hear it sizzling.
Oh, boy. I
said, what the hell is this? Why I'm losing air over here? So I picked it up and I put my flash down. I put the air mattress on a nest of scorpions.
Oh, my God.
And they punctured a hole in my mattress.
Oh, my God. Wow.
So I'll never forget that.
So what did you do?
Well, I just went to a different area and just laid down and just tried to fall asleep as best I could with no mattress.
Oh, my God.
But the very next day, we were transported by vehicle to Zion, and that's where I met up with my unit.
Okay, so now it's 67. You're in Zion.
Right.
And you're a sharpshooter?
Yeah.
That's your job?
I was assigned to be a sharpshooter. And what that meant was that we were going to be put on various types of missions, search and destroy, convoy protection.
So what is that like? How do you do that?
What, the search and destroy? We would get orders from above to gather your weapons and your belongings, which was your gear, and either they would fly us or we would take our jeeps and go to a various destination, and we would wait there till we got orders to search the area, and then get orders to destroy the area if need be. That's what that was more or less about.
So you're like a sniper. You're running a gun on a tank or on a jeep.
It could be just about anything, whether it was jeeps, convoys going through, and trails, or it could be a base camp for the enemy. Mm-hmm. A lot of them were in tunnels, which was amazing. Some of the areas that we.
Did you have to go into these tunnels?
Yeah, we had a few. We had what they called tunnel rats, which were usually smaller people than myself, because the tunnels were maybe like this.
Oh, so you're indicating something that's like 12 inches
yeah,
big.
Maybe a little bigger. And it's amazing.
And they'd have to go in there?
They would have to go in there.
With guns?
Oh, yeah. They would throw in
grenades,
just to make sure. It could be booby-trapped. But then once we opened it up and then we were able to go in some of these areas, it was amazing what they had inside. It was all underground. And in one area it could be a hospital. Another area would be a mess hall.
Wow. It's like World War One.
Yeah. They had underground...
trenches.
Yeah, it was just unbelievable how they lived, during this war. But they were very intelligent people. They would make sandals out of used tires. Mm. I mean, they did a lot of things, by hand. That was amazing. They even made handmade bombs with canned rations that were issued to the United States Army.
How'd they do that? They would get the stuff somehow.
They would get like gunpowder, or and fill it with into a canned ration, and then use a trying to spark the fuse. And they made them like that. It was just like a hand grenade going off.
So what was it like? How did you feel being there? What was it like?
Well, it was, you had to live by day to day kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't know what tomorrow would bring, and if you were going to survive or not.
Lots of shelling and...
Lots of motor rounds and firearms going back. Most of the time you really didn't see the enemy because it was at nighttime, and there was just rounds going back and forth because you would hear Prussians in the woods and stuff like that. But
and you're still in the Zion area?
No, we were moving around.
Okay.
Into various locations such as Kuchi, Da Nang.
Oh, you're up there.
Yeah, it all depended, and we would spend, Loch Ninh was another area. We were more or less, spending days, maybe weeks in various areas, and then coming back to Zion, which was our base camp, depending on the orders that we received.
Okay, so days and weeks, and then back to your base camp in Zion. So
Right.
You're on these search and destroy missions, and your job
Right.
is a sharpshooter, so people are driving you someplace and saying, Richie, go shoot that thing.
Right.
And how did you do that?
I did what I was instructed to do. So protection of our convoys as well. If we saw something that was in our way, we would destroy it and make clearance
So
for
what
us.
kind of stuff did you see that you destroyed?
Well, we saw bodies.
Wow.
I mean, it's besides that, but anything that was in sight was destroyed.
So it could be a truck carrying supplies.
Could be an animal.
Could be people. Oh, animals too. And
Yeah,
why did you
because
shoot?
there was a lot of farmland there too.
And why
in
would
various
you
areas.
destroy the animals?
Well, there was rounds going over. We had what they called 106 millimeters, which was like a cannon kind of
Like a
thing.
howitzer?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they would fire in first the locations.
But you
and
didn't
then,
fire the howitzers.
No. They would fire those into the locations first, and then we'd go in doing a sweep on
and you
foot.
would be on foot?
Yeah. And if there were huts, we would go in there, make sure that there was nobody, the enemy was not there, or sometimes unfortunately, there were a lot of villages, farmers that were around, and we had to escort them out of the way. But then there were some unfortunate ones there because they didn't go out of the way, and there was rounds of artillery going in.
Casualties.
Yeah, which was unfortunate. But
Yeah.
we had orders to do what we were instructed to do.
Sure.
Um,
And then this was also sort of the era of that terrible My Lai massacre.
yeah,
Where Sergeant Calley snapped.
right, Lieutenant Calley.
Right, Lieutenant Calley snapped.
Right.
And what did you hear about that? Was that while you were over there?
It was, I believe in 1968, which I was over there, but I was in a different location. I mean, we heard very little about it. I didn't hear much about it until after the fact. Weeks after the fact. We had our own, assignments, and there wasn't much of radioactivity, coming from the United States to where we were. So unfortunately, we didn't.
So you didn't know how unpopular the war was becoming.
No, we heard some information because they had Hanoi Hannah, I think her name was. They had a radio station that some guys would be listening to, and she was doing the propaganda about the Americans, and
Right. So what was your biggest fear? Was all be killed or captured?
Yeah, that was the biggest.
And how did your unit do? Did you have a lot of casualties?
No, believe it or not, we were very successful. Because I think the training that we all went through.
And the combination of the air support going in first,
Correct.
bombing things.
Correct.
And why do you think that didn't become more of a widespread plan? If that was so successful?
I can't even answer that. But I think sometimes people do things foolishly. And did not protect themselves the way they should have been protected.
What would be an example of that?
Marijuana was a big thing over there, and I think a lot of individuals were smoking pot freely. There was individuals that were drinking because there was liquor. When you were at the base camp.
And of course, that would make you nervous that these guys didn't have your back, right? Because
you were constantly nervous because you didn't know these guys were sober or not. Unfortunately.
And there was no way to enforce it.
Right. I mean, if they got caught, naturally they would enforce it. But even some of the sergeants that we had, they were drinking. But I think that had a lot to do with the stress too.
Sure.
So, but we made the best of it.
Yeah.
Most of the time we were out on what they call the field, on these missions. So we didn't have time to relax and celebrate, like a lot of guys did, but not our unit.
Mm-hmm.
Very active.
Mm-hmm. You were in a sort of an elite unit too, right? Because
Yeah.
you all scored big, and so you were around
Correct.
a lot of really responsible guys, right?
A lot of responsible guys.
And then, so tell me about the Tet Offensive.
Yeah, we were out in the field in an area.
And why don't you just define the Tet Offensive? How was it described to you? How did you perceive it?
It was a celebration of like New Year's Eve for us, and there was supposed to be ceasefire during that time. And I recall we were just near the border of Tay Ninh, near the Cambodian border, and we were not in the base camp, but we were outside the base camp, but we were given instructions to kind of protect that area outside of the base camp. And we were told that we were surrounded. There was some information that we were being surrounded by North Vietnamese army, which was something like at the time, if I recall, they said 10,000 troops
Wow.
were on their way because it was going through the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And I remember there was a lot of fire and artillery going on, but nobody was being attacked, but all you could see in the dark was, these rounds and traces of firearms going through the air. But I understand they broke the truce at the time. So we were on alert, and we had to stay out there for a few days. And during that time, there was some artillery that was coming in. So then we responded. And I think it was in one day we were accounted for killing, I think, 366 North Vietnamese soldiers.
Wow.
And we were awarded the citation
For the Tet Offensive, which is in the case downstairs.
Correct.
And how many losses did you have in your unit?
Our total dead were, I believe, 3 or 4, if I'm not mistaken. We were very few.
So you must have been feeling a little invincible.
Kind of. You know, when you're young and 20 years old, you know,
anyway.
Everybody thinks they're, yeah, exactly.
Until they're not, right?
Correct.
And then what's that shock of a feeling like when you see somebody die?
Well, at first, it's a numb kind of feeling, you know, because you're saying, well, that could have been me. It was hard to adjust to it at the very beginning, you know, and it was having nightmares a little bit and kind of thinking about you killing someone. But you kind of get over it, and you have to.
Yeah.
You know, you have to move on because you can't drop your guard down, not once.
So you were saying some of these guys would get too stoned to basically do their job, and that would lead to tragedy?
At times, yes, for them.
Yeah. Do you have an example of that, or just general, like what would happen? What would make something?
Well, you know, you're going through like an area like Loch Ninh. We, on one of our missions, we went into an area where it was totally booby-trapped with mines. And there was other units there as well. And from what I understand, they were like partying one night, and some guy went through the area and landed on a mine.
Because he had no judgment.
He was high, you know, and unfortunately, you know, things like that would happen. But
so your role during the Tet Offensive. So there's a lot of incoming artillery, and they're telling you, okay, Richie, go get that artillery. So you're firing.
Or there's someone up on the tree.
So first they fire the howitzer, and then you guys go in on foot or in jeeps and try to clean out the nest with regular guns.
And if it gets to a point, you know, where you call the helicopters in the air, and they would do airstrikes with rockets.
Right.
So, you know, it all depended on the...
Yeah, there was a very sad story in your website about 2 guys who were in helicopters going over rice paddies and taking in fire, getting shot, and then trying to land, and then not being able to land, and then getting killed. It was sad.
Yeah, you know, there was a lot of stuff like that was going on. Not just our unit, there was other units like that. Similar, just helicopter units.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have the ground like that we had. And you could be on a mission, machine gunner on a helicopter, and you're going to a location to destroy the area, and there would be incoming bullets, and there were casualties that way, you know, coming through the bottom.
Yeah.
We've heard some stories like that.
But you were mostly on foot or on a jeep?
No, most of the time we were on foot.
On foot, okay.
Yeah. Sometimes we were in helicopters, and then we would rappel out of helicopters in various locations where they couldn't land.
Jump out of a helicopter.
Right.
Down a rope, you'd scale
down a rope.
That must have been challenging.
Oh yeah, you'd be up there about 50 feet, 25 to 50 feet, and you know, all right, rappel out of here.
So did you have any? Go ahead.
And then I was on, you know, because I said like it was so unique. We had what they call long range patrols, LRPs.
Okay.
So I was a LRP for a while, where it was a one-man mission. You would go to locations.
Yeah.
And you would just kind of bunk yourself in, you know, camouflage yourself and wait there and to see if there's any.
And you were alone?
Yeah. And
nobody else with you?
Nobody else with you.
And what's the advantage of that?
Well, rather having a unit getting destroyed, it would be one person getting destroyed, you know, but the idea of that was to look for to see where enemy were, and to call it in.
And so how many times did you do that?
I did that. I think about 5 or 6 times
Now
during
that
my.
sounds like it must have been the worst.
Well, it was kind of, because you're there by yourself. You don't know what to expect,
Right.
and you're given
And you're worried about booby traps. And,
everything,
and they know the land and you don't.
And you're just saying, especially at nighttime, because that's more or less when they decided to come out.
Right.
You'd sleep in the day and
Robert
then be up
Bliss
all night.
said they always knew exactly where we were. We never knew where they were.
Yeah, it's kind of.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi. Just didn't help deeply. How are you?
Good, thanks. How have you been?
I'm good. Happy Merry Christmas.
Yeah, likewise.
Take our goodies downstairs.
So tell me about one of those missions. Did you find things? How long did you have to stay out there?
You could stay out there a couple of days. 2 or 3 days.
And
If there was no action,
how would you know if you could come back?
we'd call it in.
There's nothing happening, or
Right.
can I come home now?
Right, like a walkie-talkie kind of
Yeah.
radio phone. And you would just call it in, or they would come and they knew the location I was going to be in. And they would just come with support and take you out of there and off you go.
So did you ever find anything on those LERPs?
Never found anything, movement or, found some things around, where you knew there was people around. And, supplies, bandages, that kind of thing, and saying, okay, they were here and they were around somewhere
Now,
around the
if you were
location.
shot out there, would they come in and get you?
Well, if your radio phone was on, or if you didn't call in at a certain time, we had codes to call in at a certain time.
But if you just never showed back up, would they come?
Yeah, they would come.
Come reclaim
They
your
better
body?
have. Hopefully they would. Yeah,
Okay.
they knew the location you were at.
So this must have just been very nerve-wracking.
Oh, it was, because you didn't know what to
Dreaded,
expect.
that's right.
Yeah, because you could be there and you're camouflaged and you're saying okay, and it's nighttime, pitch black. You can't smoke. You can't use a flashlight, and you're dealing with snakes and scorpions, and
It's a real party.
it's a big party over there, and you had to be still. Even to go to the bathroom, you had to worry, because you get up and you break a branch, you don't know.
Right, and
So
the
you-
enemy's everywhere.
Yeah, they could be right behind you, as far as you know. So I was glad to get out of that part.
And what were those called again?
LRPs, Long Range Patrol, LRP.
Okay. So the Tet Offensive happens, and then it's over, and then what?
And then it was more or less.
So you're in and out and around the Ho Chi Minh Trail looking
Yeah,
for,
Tay Ninh was where my base camp was. I was
going
moving.
back and forth to Tay Ninh,
Right, and
trying to find convoys and.
right, protect the convoys and United States convoys, and then
And-
also
And now
protecting the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
you're trying to explode things on the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Right.
And you've had a successful Tet Offensive where you killed 300 of them and very
Right.
few of you, and you're now back to doing more of the everyday work.
Right, and the everyday work was to receive orders on your next mission. Some days it could be nothing, and we'd say, "Thank God, at least we're going to stay in and just take a rest." We did have an opportunity. You would get 3 days to rest,
R&R.
R&R, rest and recuperation. And I said, "Where am I going to go in 3 days?" So there was a place called Vung Tau in South Vietnam, and a lot of guys would go into this location. It was a big hotel, it was a town there, and I think there was an agreement, because they never got hit or anything like that, and you can actually chill out, have some fun there too.
So did you do that?
I did it.
And you had fun?
I had fun. I said, "Whoa."
What was the fun? What did you do?
Well, the first I remember walking into the hotel with a couple of buddies. The first thing, there was a papasan there, And he said to us, "Oh, because we were young and raring to go, we set you up in a nice room. And then they line up.
He's a pimp. He's a pimp.
Yeah, he's the pimp, and he lines up women, young women like ourselves. We were young, and then you had your choice of the women, So I said, "Jesus, this is going to be a first for me. It'll be a learning experience." So, so I did it. I did it with the other guys, and we drinking, partying. It was
play cards,
play cards, the whole thing.
golf.
No golf. Wish there was. Baseball.
And so you'd have fun there and try to relax, and then dread going back.
Dread going back. But, the time went quickly, and we're back to the base camp.
People told swap stories there when you were...
Anything
absolutely. In particular that you remember?
Well, a couple of guys got kind of serious with some of the women over there.
Oh, yeah.
And, what I kind of noticed that there were half Vietnamese and there was half French girls. There were a mix.
Yes, yeah,
there was
French
a lot of
there
that.
for a long time.
Yeah, and I got to see a couple of French forts that were over there. I said that was interesting, that the French were there, way before. Mm-hmm. And but they left kids there, So naturally, Americans did the same thing. There was a big thing about that.
Yeah.
Which was unfortunate.
Yeah. They weren't well cared for.
No, and I think 2020 did a whole story about that years ago, I recall. And there was a lot of American Vietnamese kids that were born over there. I don't remember the count, but it was just an unfortunate thing.
And were they were treated well or not treated well by their Vietnamese?
Correct. That's right. They weren't. They were not treated well. Considered half-breeds. And I had a personal friend that was in love. His name was Ackerman, Stan Ackerman, I think his first name was Stan, who was in love with a Vietnamese woman there. And he, instead of being into the base camp, he used to sneak out and go into the town where she lived and stay with her. Mm. And some of the villages leaked information to the Viet Cong.
Oh dear.
And on a particular evening they came in and they killed him.
Oh.
Killed her as well. And that was, believe it or not, was our first casualty.
Wow.
And I think he's on the website if you look him up, Ackerman. He was the CO's driver.
Oh dear.
And that kind of, brought it home, and they're saying, whatever you do, don't get involved with women in this country. What are you going to do? You can't bring them back, but guys were kind of crazy, they did crazy. When you fall in love with someone, what do you do?
Yeah.
That was the first thing my mother asked me. Do you have any Vietnamese girlfriends there? No. No.
Okay. Anything you want to talk about your anything specific you remember that I haven't asked you about that you think would be good for people to know that you'd like
I remember,
to have in the archive?
Well, I think I told you once about me the day I was leaving.
Yes.
In the...
So you'd been there how long? 2 years?
I was there 11 months, believe it or not.
11 months, and it's time
because
you can go home now.
Then I can go home now. And they wanted me to re-up, and I said, hell no, I ain't re-upping.
Right.
And the CO,
lieutenant... But a lot of people did re-up, huh?
Oh, yeah. There were guys that...
Gung-ho.
It becomes a mental thing, and I think mentally, these guys were, I don't want to say all there at the point, but, they got this taste for blood.
They get seduced into it.
Yeah, and some, in fact, went home, but they... Re-upped again, and to come back. They could not adjust to living the way...
life.
Yeah, it was unfortunate, but a lot of guys did that. Mm-hmm. And some guys just didn't. They just stayed there and re-upped. naturally given a stripe or whatever, they decided to negotiate for you to re-up. For me, they wanted to give me an additional stripe, and I said, "No way, Jose! I'm out of here." So the day that I was supposed to be leaving, I was supposed to leave by helicopter, and the lieutenant, I don't know whether he chased the guy away or what, but I had no transportation.
Wait. Oh, this is the place.
So they said the only transportation for you to get out of here was to be a machine gunner on a convoy going to that destination. And I said, well, that's the only way out of here. That's the way I'm going. And that's what I did. And I arrived at Long Bend. I processed paperwork over there.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, they made us sleep over. The next day I went to Travis Air Force Base. And I remember lining up to get onto the Flying Tiger. Everybody had to be 10 feet apart so that if there was any incoming rounds, they didn't want anybody grouped together. That was the purpose of having everyone at least 10 feet away. So.
And that's the Flying Tiger's a plane?
Yeah, it's a private plane. It was a cargo plane. And I guess the United States Army had a contract with them, flying back and forth. It was like a regular, they had stewardess there, and...
It's like a regular airline.
Yeah. So I remember it was so quiet, getting on board. Nobody said a word. And we're just all, I guess, and I know I was saying, geez, I hope we don't get hit, and we were waiting for the plane to take off. Once it took off, and when we got to a couple of thousand feet, everybody just bursted out, threw their hats up in the air and started cheering,
Yeah.
And I remember they had to do a refill. I remember falling asleep, waking up, and it was nighttime in Japan. And then it was kind of crazy. Day, night, back to day. It was that kind of thing when we landed. Mm-hmm. We landed in Oakland Air Force Base in California. And there were signs, welcome home, outside. And they said, steak dinner is awaiting you. But you have to process out first. Meaning you had to be fitted for a new uniform. You had to go through a physical. You had to do some paperwork. So it took.
So you're going into the reserves from there, or you were just?
Yeah, I got bypassed on the reserves because I was combat mission, so I didn't have to do any reserves.
Okay.
Which was great.
Yeah. So why'd you need a new uniform?
Well, they want when you're going home and you're going, they want you in clean dress.
Looking nice.
Yeah. So everybody had to be fitted for dress greens, as they call.
Okay.
And had my medals on. I remember, and I was so happy. When am I getting out of here? But the quicker that you did your paperwork, had to get some shots also, and going through the physicals, it was like kind of nonstop. So I just continuously worked till the next morning, so I can get out early, and had my steak dinner, and then went to the cashier. Because whatever money they owed you, so I had something like $600 or $700.
Ah, you're a rich man.
Yeah, I said, man, and I used to send money home every month. I said, this is it. So a friend of mine and I, we left together because he lived in New York as well, and we left San Francisco. I remember going to the airport, and then landing in LaGuardia Airport. I called my parents, he called his, we're at the bar. Little did we know that, we heard some rumblings, from my sister was telling me, but there was a few guys at the end of the bar and they were saying some derogatory stuff to us, And,
like what? You're in your dress greens?
Yeah, we're in our dress greens and saying, geez, thank God we're home, we kissed the ground, saying we were so happy and we have these guys, saying, what the hell are you guys, you're killers, and cursing at us. And the bartender, I remember telling him to chill out, these guys were a little looped, I think.
So you're at a bar at LaGuardia Airport?
Yeah. So one of them got up and started walking by as me and my friend were chatting, and he spit at him.
He spit at your
At
friend?
us, yeah. And that kind of led to a
Now, who were these guys?
just regular.
Like businessmen traveling?
Yeah, I remember they were dressed up in suits, and
They're in
I
suits
think
and
they were. I don't
ties?
know if they were coming in or going out, or they were at the bar, and they were just they were a few years older, I would say, than us.
And they were New Yorkers? What were they?
Don't even know. Don't even know. I remember, just
So then what
it happened so fast, and then we kind of,
You must have been shocked.
we couldn't believe it,
Like,
so.
why are these guys picking on us,
Yeah.
right? And
So
is
when
it your reaction isn't just to like bash them in the head?
Well, we wanted to, but we were trying to just keep our cool and just to kind of avoid them. So one of them got up, walked towards us, and spit at at my friend.
And why did they spit at you? Because they thought you were what?
They were calling us killers,
Killers.
Make peace, not war, that kind of, and just saying some crazy stuff, and four-letter words here and there. So when he spit at my friend got up, and I got up naturally, and then my friend hit him. And before you know it, we got into a spat. And I think the bartender anticipated this, and he called the police. And the cops came, and naturally the bartender, it wasn't these guys, it wasn't their fault. It was and they asked us if we wanted to press charge, and we said, no, we just want to go home, the kind of thing. So they put these guys in handcuffs, and they escorted them out of the bar. And by that time, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, my parents came, and off I went.
And what did you think of that?
I was kind of, here I am, I'm protecting, I thought I was protecting our country, and fighting for our country, and I was so proud to be an American and, and defending our country. And having individuals like this, my first day, just not even a couple hours, and these guys cursing at us and telling us, what the hell? I couldn't understand, I couldn't comprehend what was going on. And I was only 22 years old, going on 22. And I got an education, naturally, from my family, telling me what was going on, but
Now, what did your family tell you was going on?
that there was a lot of, riots that were taking place, and, there was, make love, not war kind of thing, and,
So this
just
is
don't pay
60
attention.
68?
Yeah. So when I was in the car going home, I was telling them what happened. They were just so happy I was home, so. And I remember when I arrived home, there was a big sign, "Welcome home, Richie," on my house, my parents' home. Big, it had to be at least 20 feet long. And all the neighbors were outside, and friends, and I said, wow, what a welcome home this is, so it was, go from one thing to
One extreme to the other.
yeah, it was really nice. And I had 3 parties right after that day, 3 days in a row.
Your friends,
From
your
my
parents.
friends had one, my
Yeah.
parents had one, at the time my fiance had one. So it was really, for the first couple of days. And I said, geez, when am I going to get some sleep around here?
Yeah.
But it was really, really nice. And I said, I need to, just sit back a little bit and think, what am I going to be doing? And I don't want to just sit here and think. I think I can just start right away, look for a job, and get right out there. And I started going to various corporations at the time. And not within a week, one of my friends who lived about 4 blocks away, his name was Robert Tabor, who was also in Vietnam, different unit, he hung himself.
Oh my goodness.
Couldn't deal with it.
Well, this was after he came home?
Yeah.
And why did he do that? Did he leave a note?
No. But I think he just, I don't know. He just, and the funny thing is I remember seeing him when I was going through my processing out and bumping into him, and I said, we got to hook up, get together, that kind of thing. And I never got the opportunity to because
And what did you make of that?
I just think that it was, some people, they just couldn't tolerate what was going on. And
Tell me
rumor
what
had
was
it
going
he was
on here.
engaged and his girlfriend was cheating on him.
Oh,
And I think there was a combination of things. But I think that kind of hit home. A lot of guys, from what I understand, went a little with the breakups with their girlfriends or fiancés, even
yeah.
wives at the time.
sure.
Because I remember overseas there was a few like
And what
that
did you
happened.
think about the sentiment in the country about people being so anti-war?
I just couldn't accept it. I understand about about war and protecting your country, and you need to do certain things to protect your country. And at the time I said, I think we're doing the right thing, but now that you look back and say, what the hell was I here for? What were we going through? And then I started reminiscing about certain things while I was there, that if you were a general or a colonel, I was living in a foxhole and these guys were living in trailers and being fed steaks every day, and not even near the war zone, most of them. I'm saying, this is politics. Welcome to politics.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, we killed innocent people there as well. But, when you're young, you follow instructions and you just go on with your life.
And how do you think over the years that experience has affected you?
How it affected me? Well, I was very strong-willed, and I kind of blanked out everything,
Sure.
more or less, of what
Blinders
was
on.
going on. Yeah, and I just went on with my life, and that's why I went right away. I think it was 2 weeks after I was out of the service, I was offered a job with the New York Times.
Yeah, and what a wonderful experience you had there. Very
Yeah.
successful career there.
Right, and I worked in. It was great. It was a long career and very successful, like you said. And never looked back. I just believed in. I was always optimistic about things and just go forward with your life, and that's what I did. Never looked behind me, except for the first day when I was there. I don't know if you recall, they used to have sirens that used to go on at 12 o'clock.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it would be almost as... If you were in Vietnam and you were in your base camp, and if there were motor rounds incoming, they would put these sirens on. And it sounded just like that. And the first day I was there, it was noontime, I was at my desk.
Oh, in the city?
In the city.
Oh, okay.
And they had the sirens go on.
Okay.
Little did I know. When I heard that, I hit the deck.
Oh, really?
I went and dove down because my mind just automatically...
What do people think of
I
that?
said, oh my God, what's going on? So I kind of explained to them, I think a few knew, saying, listen, he just came back from war, so that must have triggered something.
Mm-hmm.
But I got kind of
And you
used to
sustained an
it.
injury, and you have permanent hearing loss. Tell me about
During a particular day, there were some incoming rounds coming into where we were at our base camp, and they were coming pretty close, and so we were running to our bunkers. So as we were running, there was I remember hearing it. It's a whistling. The rocket it's a whistling noise, and I knew it was coming close. So I dove along with a couple other guys. I dove
into a bunker, or
No, I didn't make it to the bunker yet.
just dove into the ground.
Into the ground. I know I was ripped up, cut all over, and the round was maybe 10 feet maybe from me.
Oh boy, you're really lucky.
Yeah. Fortunately, the shell, the scrap metal
Goes
rises, and I was down below. I guess it was enough that it cleared from where I was. The only thing is I couldn't hear for a couple of days. And I had gone to the doctor, they had, in the base camp, and he was checking and gave me some medication for the ears. But the ringing, and I couldn't hear too well. And he said, don't worry, it's going to pass. And eventually it passed for a while, but, I noticed that I didn't have the keen hearing that I normally would have.
Which you'd really need for those long LRPs or
Yeah.
LRPs.
Right, right. So they gave me medication and told me, "Don't worry, it'll subside." And I kind of just blanked it out and did what I needed to do afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But
Now, did you sleep in bunkers? Or did you sleep in
There were a few
barracks?
times I slept. Usually, most of the time, I was in a bunker, to sleep. In the base camps, they had tents, so you would and a cot. They would ship over cots, so I was able to sleep on a cot in the base camp under a tent, which was two other guys with me.
Mm-hmm.
No protection, though, but
Yeah.
but it was better than being on the ground.
Scorpions.
Right,
Kind of sleeping
exactly.
in a nest of scorpions.
But you could still have rats and scorpions, around you. But
What did you do with them if you had a scorpion? You killed them, right?
yeah, absolutely.
How'd you kill them?
With the butt of my rifle,
Uh-huh.
or my foot, just try to crunch them. It was disgusting.
Yes.
The rat, I noticed like animals over there, snakes and rats, and it used to be like twice the size, and they said that was because of the climate, so hot,
Oh,
120 degrees in the shade.
wow.
So they were like double the size of what we'd have over here. I mean, they were huge. You can play target practice with them.
Yeah.
All
All right. Well, is there anything else we should talk about? If you want to take a break, or if you think of something else?
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
It's been an hour.
Oh, okay.
You must be tired, right?
Yeah.
Need a drink of water?
It's okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.